When you look at the top 2% most promiscuous women, that equals the median man. Do you guys understand?
Yeah.
Like the average guy, his level, his desire for sexual variety equals the top 2% of women.
Yeah.
Even women who do adult work or escort, even their desire for sexual partners is less than the actual number of sexual partners they have. Yeah. We have our sunglasses of misogyny on real quick, okay? Everybody have your misogyny sunglasses on?
Right.
Ready? Here we go. Do you believe that these men with these super high body counts are only having sex with super high body count women like we're being told through these assortative men? I've heard this from Alex from Datesite, Rob Henderson, and Jasmine Jafar, that the guys who are sleeping with all these women are only sleeping with hyper promiscuous women. The guys that we've had on the show that like crush it with women, I know guys in the city who are either male strippers, gigolos, VIP hosts. I'm talking 500, 600, 700 body count minimum. And I'll ask them, like, every girl you've been with is just like a star or an escort or whatever, and they're like, no, like more than half the women I'm with are not like that at all. It's an accountant from Paducah, Kentucky. Like that's who I'm with. And then when you do the math, it's like there aren't enough female roster spots. So women report how many partners they have.
Right.
There's not enough roster spots to fit the men in the top 10%. What I'm saying is the top 20% of women don't have enough sex with enough men to equal the top 20% of men. In fact, I think the number is like 4 or 5 to 1. What I mean by that is the top 1% of men have 150 sexual partners. The top 1% of women have 35. You see how that doesn't match up? Like what I'm saying is the top 10% of women, there's not enough. If I took 1 million men and 1 million women, I took the top 100,000 men and the top 100,000 women, and I multiplied the coefficient of how many sexual partners the average guy in the top 10% had versus the top 10% of women. For men, it's almost 5 times as many sexual partners. And so when we look at the Hans Larson data on the GSS, 58% of women's sexual partners are with the top 10% most promiscuous men. And then when I read the Rob Henderson thing, it's like, well, yeah, but they're not in relationships with those women. That's the point. That is the point.
Litmus test.
That is the point.
Yes.
That's number one. And then number two, it's like, well, don't worry, guys, because it's a myth. They're only having sex with hyper promiscuous women. I'm sorry, the math does not agree. There's not enough. Yeah. Like one of my favorite things to show. So I like discussing dimorphic differences in evolutionary psychology. The 3 biggest dimorphic differences: one is upper body strength. Men are more than twice as strong as women in their upper body, just on average. Number 2, the desire for sexual variety. Men, when asked how many sexual partners they want to have when they die, what's the total number? The number comes out somewhere in the 20s. For women, it's like 7 or 6 or 5, somewhere in that. When you look at the top 2% most promiscuous women, that equals the median man. Do you guys understand?
Yeah.
Like the average guy, his level, his desire for sexual variety equals the top 2% of women.
Yeah.
Even women who do adult work or escort, even their desire for sexual partners is less than the actual number of sexual partners they have.
Yeah. And you're talking about lays, not relationships.
Yeah, I'm talking about individual, because that's a number we can look at. What we can't look at is good sex in a relationship versus bad sex at a frat party. I don't have data on that. If somebody has census data on that, I want to see it. The amount of men that go sexless for a year, that number keeps increasing. The amount of sexual partners for the bottom 33% of men, I know that keeps going down. And the amount of sexual partners for the top 10% of men, I know that keeps going up. I know that the amount of sexual partners for the top 5% of men for over the last 15 years, I believe went from 38 partners to 50. If I were to take the body count for women in general, I'm going to get a line. So that as they get older, the number of bodies they get will increase.
Correct,
over time. For men, I'm going to get like, or for the women who have the least amount of sex, they're going to be over here.
Right.
But like it's 20% of women who haven't had sex in the last year. It's 33% of men who haven't had sex in the last year. So we're going to get this number of people with this number of bodies, this number of bodies, this number of bodies, and we're going to end up here at 35% for the top 35 bodies for the top 1%. Okay. So we're going to start at 0. We're going to go to 35. For men, it's going to be 0 for like the first 23, 25%. Then the median is going to be 5 or 7, depending on who you ask. Yeah. So it's like 0 for the first 25%. Then when we get to the median, we're going to get to 5 or 7 bodies. Then when we get to the top 10%, we're at 35 bodies. Then when we get to the top 5%, we're at 50. And then when we get to top 1%, we're at 150. Right. I don't even think you can get hired as a host in Las Vegas if you have fewer than 150 bodies. I don't even think they will hire. I don't even think you can work for Thunder from Down Under with under 150 bodies. Honestly, girl is married to a guy who has a body count of 5. She thinks her husband is better than me if my body count is greater than 5, not recognizing that if her husband had my opportunities, he'd have my body count. A man with no muscles is not a peaceful man. Right. You can't conduct violence. Because your husband can't get laid doesn't make him better than me or more moral. It means women don't choose him. Yeah. And had they chose him, he'd have the same body count hypothetically that I have.
The difference between one guy who like cheats on his wife and Tiger Woods,
yeah,
who like cheated on her like so many times. But you look at the amount of women that were like, would have Tiger Woods, then you could say no, Tiger Woods is actually in a better spot for that position.
He's only cheated 9 times with 11,000 people coming after him and stuff.
Yeah, if you do the ratio, if you do the math, his love for his wife is crazy.
Yeah.
Just to add to what Rollo's saying, when you put your body count as a measure of how good you are as a man, it's crazy because like the older I get, I'm kind of like, I'm not ashamed to say my body count. It's more like, it's not important anymore.
Right.
It's not a measure of like my manhood. It's just a matter of like, okay, I did this, great. Now let's move on. And the funny part is, it just was experience. But to what level of experience? Because if I spend all day fucking bitches,
You're not doing nothing.
I've not really done anything
shit.
as a man of actual merit. I've just a bunch of bitches.
Right.
So okay, do I need a trophy now? Like what's
So,
the?
are you leading towards quality now?
No. What you want to know? What every single one of those women talking shit about Klay Thompson after the whole Megan Thee Stallion thing have in common? Every one of them would fuck Klay Thompson in 1 second if he messaged.
Correct.
Them. If he messaged him, these women would throw themselves at Klay Thompson. I got the same guy that Megan Thee Stallion got.
I understand what you're saying, Fresh, because I got to a point where I'm just like, once I got past 50, right? All this pretentious bullshit about like, body count this, or I want a girl who doesn't have a low body. I'm like, I want a chick who's DTF. I want a girl who's hot and wants to. That's basically it. I'm good with that. I don't care what is your body count. People always think that because me and Myron did that one show, or a couple of shows actually, where we talked about like body count and how it affects marriage, contentment, and bonding and all this other stuff. And I think we actually came up with 6, which is what all the eggheads finally came up with later on. But we just got to it 2 years earlier. I think because we did that show, everybody thinks that like he and I are like, well, body count is the worst thing for women, or slut shaming women because we're talking about body count. I'm just giving you the stats, man. If you want to ask me personally what I think about it, I told Coral Osborne this too. I said, I don't
Coral
care.
Osborne's awesome.
I could give 2 fucking shits about.
She's great.
But the thing is like I understand what you're saying, because like whenever people want to say that these red pill guys or whatever, the manosphere guys, they measure their egos by how many notch counts they have, or like it's a measuring contest. I'm like, no, it's not, and I'll tell you why. Because I can go. We're in Nevada right now. Okay, is prostitution legal here? Mike Sartain? No, not in Las Vegas, but it is legal in places in Nevada. But it doesn't matter, because the thing is like, if I say I have 100 body count, but 90 of them were hookers I bought or escorts that does that mean, what if I have 100 body count
or trannies? Let's not shame the trannies.
Okay,
let's not shame them. Trannies have equal
Brazilian trannies.
Brazilian trannies are equal rights to a body.
Yes, exactly.
Can we all agree to that?
That's what you did there.
But you see what I'm saying? It's like I don't think it's a good metric, because a guy who gets laid 100 times with prostitutes and a guy who gets laid and he's never had a prostitute in his life, those are qualitatively much different situations, right? Yeah. So there is that. But the other part of it is like when everybody asks me, or they think that if I go into do a whole episode dedicated to body count, they think that because I do that I must be on their side. That I must think the same thing. Oh, Rollo's really about this. But you know why they have a problem with that? Because they don't fuck. They're guys that don't fuck. And the guys who don't fuck think that body count should matter more than it does, because it helps them cope with the fact that they're guys who don't fuck. And I've written several essays about this, and people are going to just run me up the flagpole for saying this. I don't give a flying fuck, because it's been done a million times. But the thing is like,
that's easy for you to say, Rollo. You're not dying of thirst right now.
Well, it's intrasexual competition is what
Rollo.
it is. It's guys. Rollo. So a guy can't take on him because he's got better upper body strength than it. This is a guy that fucks. Okay, a guy who does not fuck.
He's got
to
hypothetically.
Yes, hypothetical
guy.
Protect the innocent.
But there's those guys have to find some sort of psychological way to gaslight you into thinking that because you fuck, you're a very bad man. And so that's why body count becomes an issue.
I would be willing to bet that if we were to have a therapist on here, and then the therapist hypothetically would talk to a man who had 200 sexual partners in his life. I don't know if we know anyone like that.
I know one.
If we can think of anyone who even 200, I don't see how every therapist would say, well, that person's obviously a narcissist because they had 200 sexual partners.
But Mike, just out to your point, you wouldn't know my body count if I didn't say it. Nobody
would
correct.
Know. Yeah, of course.
Nobody would know what, because first of all, I don't act like that anyway. One. Right. I'm not an asshole, but this is like, bro, when you get to a certain level, it's like, bro, I beat the game. Why am I gonna?
There is a certain level. There is a certain level of aura. I beat
the game.
Like you're like, I could tell this guy that's could get us a partner.
Bro,
yes.
You chill with me, right? What am I always around?
What'd you say?
Well, okay, you've been with me, right, in Miami? What am I always around?
You're always around really, really attractive, extremely white Eastern European women with really, really nice butts. But white women with incredible asses.
But I'm just like you, right?
Yes.
And it's funny because they're like, oh, you guys are doing too much. We're just living our lives. This is who we are. But again, my body count, you would never know unless I told you.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I remember I was on Pat Campbell's show one time. It was we were talking about body count,
R.I.P.
and I was on there, and Carly was his producer, his chick, his producer, and someone on the show asked me what my body count was, and because like I'm always open about it. Oh, it's 41, and you could hear this audible gasp in that because this is Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? They're like,
how dare you?
And like they thought it was a man, like. The guys that I know who are like in the triple digits, they think I'm a rookie. They think I shouldn't even be giving advice because I don't have my numbers aren't up enough. I don't have no receipts.